I have to keep referring. If you guys don't know about that 100 monkey experiment, go
What
look
the
what
fuck
happened
is
to
wrong with
them.
this idiot? These are the undoers of God's law. Don't you understand who and what it is? It's a fucking demon. They're mentally and emotionally sick, spiritually sick, energetically diseased. But I just give it to you right how the scripture would give it to you.
Well, they can't connect on our level. Like we're all resonating, ringing, our energies.
You serious?
Hey, what's up, world? I have a very funny experience to share with you all. Now, I'm sure none of my subscribers saw this, because it's not like I put out a notification informing people that I'm going to go on some person's live stream and potentially make a fool of myself. I don't think I made a fool of myself. I think that these people made fools of themselves. But I'll get into that in the video, and I'll provide evidence for that. So, I went on this guy, Paul Unslaved's live stream. Now, this guy came to my attention, he came on my radar because of High Impact shills. Now, High Impact Flix, he put out a video, I saw it on BitChute, where Paul Enslaved had a conversation with Gematria Effects or whatever. I used to be subscribed to him, I unsubscribed to him a little while ago because, to me, the whole numbers thing, it doesn't add up to anything, you know, to use a pun. It doesn't, like, it's like, okay, when you go to somebody and you show them these numbers, it's like, okay, what are they supposed to do? It's like, okay, even if people are, or even if events happen on these dates and follow these numbers, is it a coincidence? Is it intentional? Is it an act of, like, some divine presence? It's like, you know, it doesn't really leave anybody with anything. You know, it's not really based, in my opinion, in reality. Me, I'd like to stick to facts and empirical evidence, and not just numbers that a lot of different things can be inferred off of, or inferred from, you know, and for instance, you know, I'd like to go into the history of the Constitution and talk about the things that the Anti-Federalists said about the Constitution. So, to me, this is a little bit more relevant. People can do more with this information. And if you're asking them yourself, well, what can they do with this information? Well, with this information, they can see that the empirical problem is actually the Constitution. The Constitution allows for a lot of these abuses. You know, these people, they say the Constitution, or they say these actions are unconstitutional. And they don't realize, no, they're actually not unconstitutional. You just don't understand the Constitution, and you don't understand how the Constitution actually allows for the government to violate our rights under certain circumstances. So that is something I think that people can do more with, because then they can work on a new constitution, or they can think about ideas of a better constitution that better secures our liberties. You know, these are things that they can do in reality, not in magical fantasy land, which is what we're going to get into. But, like, what are you supposed to do with these numbers? Like, are you supposed to start practicing magic? Am I supposed to, like, start doing magic with numbers? Like, I don't understand. What am I supposed to do with these numbers? Am I supposed to bring these numbers to a court and, like, submit them as evidence against these corrupt people? Like, am I supposed to use these numbers to prove corruption? Like, why do I have to do that? Why do I have to use these numbers? There's plenty of things in the empirical world, there's plenty of things in reality that prove their corruption without having to use these numbers. What else am I supposed to use with these numbers? Am I supposed to use these numbers to prove that they're cultist? Well, I mean, obviously they're cultist. There's plenty of other things that you can be using to prove that. So I don't understand what these people like Zach over at Gematria Effect want to do with these numbers. Actually, the only purpose I can see for these numbers, the only purpose I can see for all of this magic stuff that they like to fixate on, is to entertain people. You know, it makes for very good entertainment, and it satisfies this, like, desire for fantasy that a lot of people have. So, I came across this guy, though, from High Impact Flix. So, to me, that said a lot. But I wasn't going into this conversation with the assumption that he is as much of a shill as High Impact Flix. I came into this conversation wanting to talk to him about a couple of things. So one thing that I wanted to talk to him about was religion, because he was quoting from the Bible, and he has, like, a lot of very religious rhetoric, And a lot of the guests that he has on with him, and it's funny too, because he's like, oh, I don't like community. And this is a point that I want to talk to him about, because this guy Zach was trying to talk to him about building community with him. And sure, maybe he doesn't want to build community with Zach because he's suspicious of Zach. But he can tell Zach that. He doesn't need to come off as very abrasive and divisive, like the way that he comes off. He comes off as if building community is in itself bad. And you can look at his own rhetoric. Don't take my word for it. Just because I'm saying this, don't believe me. Go and look at the rhetoric in his last couple of live streams. So I wanted to come onto his channel and talk about religion. That was the first thing that I wanted to talk about. And I wanted to talk about how religion usually ends up dividing a lot of people. Because then if they're Christian, they usually don't really view positively other religions. Now, that was my mistake. And he corrected me on that. After I had talked about religion, I had tried making a point about how religion and this idea of spirituality prevents people from acting in the real reality. People, they think that some magical thing will help them at the end. And they think that, they don't have to worry that, at the end of this life, there will be a payoff in the next life. And I tried explaining to him how this was all an invention of the club, of the cult, and how it was used to pacify the masses. And that's what I wanted to talk to him about how religion has just been used to pacify the masses. And then he was all like, well, I'm not religious, and you're just that, you have this assumption. And I would have responded to that, okay, fair, all right, you're not religious. Thank you for clearing that up. And that's actually exactly how I responded when they gave me the opportunity to respond. And, I corrected myself. Okay, you're not religious. Now let's talk about something else. And the next thing that I wanted to talk to him about was community. Because this guy Zach, who High Impact Flix was responding to, like his conversation with this guy Zach was trying to build community, and he was coming off very abrasive. And I guess I can't say that he triggered Zach into exploding on him and cursing at him, because Zach should be responsible for his own emotions. But the way that Paul was coming off ended up causing Zach to become very triggered and freaking out. And then Paul was like, look, I win, I'm victorious. And then all I could think was that dude, you making yourself insufferable and then celebrating when a person can no longer suffer you is not a victory. This is no victory. And this is a point that I wanted to talk to him about. And one of his guests who were there, in the live stream too, he asked me, he was like, who do you think was responsible for Zach's freak out? And I was kind of I'm on the fence where it's both of them, where Zach should be in more control of his faculties. But at the same time, it's Paul was coming off as very abrasive, very sarcastic, and he was doing it the entire conversation with me. He started off the conversation, he asked me about my own education. It's not like I just came out and was like, I'm in grad school, and I'm on a higher horse than you. He asked me if I was in college, and I was like, yeah, I'm in grad school. It's dude, if you're asking me a fact, I'm going to respond with that fact. And then the whole time, one of his guests was like, oh yeah, he's in grad school. And actually even Paul himself was like, oh yeah, you're better than me. He was being very patronizing. And it's yeah, you're better than me. You're in grad school. Yeah. You have to tell us, what's right and wrong. And, he was being very, very abrasive, very divisive. And, what I wanted to talk to him about was the divide and conquer philosophy, the benefits of community. And I even acknowledged the harms in community. I was like, look, these people, they think that there's only positives with community. And I acknowledge that, there are negatives to being part of a community. You're now going to be represented by that community, or at least to some degree. If they do something stupid, you can get tied down with them, or you can get brought down with them. And I acknowledge that. But it's okay, also acknowledge the benefits of some community. And I had said that, the club, they succeed. The powers that be, they succeed because they have a lot of community. And we have no community at all. Now, I'm going to ignore all of that. What I really want to show, though, what I really want to point out is I actually managed to trigger this guy, Paul, into freaking out. So not only did I trigger him into freaking out, look what actually triggered him, right? So this guy was talking about being hateful and stuff. So I had said, you guys were the ones being hateful and toxic. And they were. They were being extremely toxic, extremely hateful. I was maintaining my composure. I even muted myself and allowed them to talk. They didn't have to mute me. Of course, there were a couple times where I had to interject and attempt to talk over them, but I still recognized when they were going on their own tangent. Then after I said this, right, what are you talking about? And then I'm like, the whole time, oh yeah, and then I'm like, you guys were the ones being toxic. And by the way, I'm writing this in Your Pal the Devil account in my backup channel, because he actually blocked me in harmful content. So my phone was dying, and you can see actually I'm charging my phone here. My phone has actually charged at this point for quite some time. So you can see my phone is charging here, okay? So when I was in the live with them, my phone ended up dying. And then, like, when I came back and charged my phone, they were making it as if I was lying about my phone dying. So I had said, like, look, my phone was dying. I'm like, I got a charger and my phone did die. I'm just correcting the record. And look, they blocked me for saying the truth, because they're on here and they're saying something false. And I'm just saying, look, my phone did die. So my phone did die. I got a charger, and they're on here fixated. They're just fixating on the fact that my phone died. And they're acting like, there's no other way to describe it other than children. They're like, oh, he's acting like his phone died. And it's like, it's such a juvenile conversation. And like, a thing that I wanted to ask Paul is like, what truth are you standing for? And by the way, he blocked me several times. So I was in timeout for 5 minutes. And then I was blocked over here. I think over here I said, for people who believe so much in magic, you guys don't act very magical. And it's because they act like juveniles. They act like little children. And then I probably said something else up here, and I'm like, very sad, just like, the way that they're acting. Of course, I got blocked for that. But anyway, here's the creme de la creme. Check out what he does here, okay? Simply because I said that they were the ones acting toxic and hateful. Check this out.
I have to keep referring, if you guys don't know about that 100-monkey experiment.
What the fuck is wrong with this idiot? Okay, see? Now I'm going to use straight up regular, not you. You thought I was trying. You thought I was going to do the whole. I was actually there, like, getting frustrated because they come in, they think they have this little crick.
Okay, I'm just going to pause right here. So you saw he like lost his shit. He was like, "What the fuck is wrong with this idiot?" And then I think he got like a message because somebody else was messaging him at the end, and like he was like, "Oh yeah, this person's telling me to leave." So I think somebody like caught him, like, "No, bro, like, don't freak out." So he caught himself because like you can hear he's like, "What the fuck is wrong with this idiot?" And then he's like, "All right, I'm gonna use. Let's see what he says again."
You guys don't know about that 100-monkey experiment.
What the fuck is wrong with this idiot? Okay, see? Now I'm gonna use straight up regular, not you.
See, he's like, "I'm gonna use straight up regular," and he almost let his persona drop. It's like, right there he's letting us know, like, he's not talking his regular language here. And then let's see what else he says.
You thought I was trying. You thought I was going to do the whole. I was actually there, like, getting frustrated because they come in, they think they have this little crick in their neck and this little affect in their voice, this superiority affect.
So it's hilarious. The whole time he was making it like I was acting superior. Yet the whole time he was trying to demean every aspect about my character. Like the whole time, nothing but like ad hominem sarcasm. Like, oh yeah, you're in college. Really juvenile. And even everything else, like many other things he said, just amounted to like ad hominem fallacies or ad hominem attacks. But let's see what else he says here.
And they proceed to tell you how there's no such thing as spirituality and magic when the word inspiration means in spirit.
Okay, so remember, he's all about this magic and this spirituality nonsense, which they have used to keep us from acting out in the real reality. They're trying to keep us in this spiritual matrix that doesn't exist, and it actually prevents us from acting out in reality. And it's hilarious. I tried making this point to him, and he was like, "Oh, no, I'm not religious. I'm not religious at all." And he actually tried denying this, and it's like, okay, look, clearly you're religious. Here's the evidence, right? Now, what's also interesting is, like, he uses the definition of inspiration. He's like, look, inspiration means in spirit. So clearly there's spirituality, right? It's like, what do you, like, it doesn't make any sense what you're saying. Just because this word has these roots and has this meaning does not mean that spirituality actually exists. It's like, yes, that word came up, inspiration came up because of the use of spirit in the language that existed beforehand. It's not like inspiration, the word inspiration, was just created by God. No, it was created by human beings, and they created off of other words that they were using in the language. And if you understand anything about language history, you will understand how language became more complex as the world opened up to people. Their language was very primitive in in the beginning because there wasn't much in their world that they needed to classify with language. But then as the world opened up and as the mind opened up, they created other words. And those other words that they created were largely based off of the simpler words that were already in use. But anyway, let's keep listening to him.
So this new age university creature.
Okay, hilarious. He calls me a new age university creature. But it's like, dude, you're just projecting. You're actually the one spouting the new age nonsense. The spirituality and magic nonsense. This is the new age stuff. And he's totally projecting. He's saying that I'm spreading this new age stuff on his channel. It's like, dude, like, are you even in your right faculties? And, you know what I mean, nothing against smoking weed, but, I mean, maybe you are just a little too high. I mean, that happens. I mean, nothing against smoking weed. Nothing wrong with smoking weed. But you can get too high. Trust me, I know.
Wants to rework the language, purpose, and meaning and definition that has remained the same since the beginning of time.
What? Okay, so once again, I wasn't trying to rework any definitions. I was actually just being very clear on the meaning of these definitions. And once again, this reminds me a lot of Brian over at High Impact Flix, where he tries to get into the definition of words as if, like, those definitions have some grand or greater meaning that we should fixate on. Like, he does this with government. Like, Brian does this with the word government. He actually gives the wrong meaning for the word government, but let's say he gives the correct meaning for the word government. Let's just pretend he's doing that. Well, he then uses that meaning for government to say that, oh, all governments do this. And it's like, no, just the corrupt governments that were created by this cult. Yes, they do this, but that does not mean we throw the baby out with the bathwater. But anyway, let's keep listening to this guy.
These are the undoers of God's law. Don't you understand who and what it is? It's a fucking demon.
See, once again, so this is hilarious. He's saying that I'm undoing God's law. And this is why I was trying to talk to him about religion the first time. And then he said that, oh, he's not religious. So right here, he's contradicting himself. He's a liar. This guy, I do not trust him at all. All he does is he gets himself arrested, and he makes it like that is changing the world. And really, he's just doing it for views. For views, he's an entertainer, and he's a great entertainer. But I do not trust this guy. Like, his rhetoric, his blatant contradictions, and his blatant lies, and the fact that he censors people. For no reason. I mean, I was just making good points, man. And he freaks out because I'm accurately describing what they were doing. They were being hateful and toxic. And then he freaks out. And that's what he wanted me to do. He wanted me to freak out the way that he did and curse. And I didn't freak out when my phone was dying. I told his audience, actually it wasn't his audience, I was trying to tell the gematria people and the people who were trying to build a community with this guy that they're wasting their time. That this is not the kind of person you want to be building a community with. Like this sort of very juvenile, very sarcastic, very arrogant personality. You don't really want to be with these people, especially these like God-driven people who are talking about me being a demon. Look, he calls me a demon.
That's the most base level religious wording, right? Don't you understand who and what it is? It's a fucking demon. That's the most base level religious wording, right? Ecumenical wording you could use. And there's different ways to communicate the same idea. They're mentally and emotionally sick, spiritually sick, energetically diseased, right? There's many ways we could break it down and describe it, but I just give it to you right how the scripture would give it to you. Because it's a thousands of years old experience and discernment.
Well, they can't connect on our level. Like
they can't connect.
Like we're all resonating, ringing, our energies.
Yeah, so that's those guys. I can't connect on their level, but yet they're accusing me of being arrogant. It's a really interesting study in sophistry, in psychology. And, you know, people who, like this guy, Zach, Gematria Effect guy, you know, you can't let these guys get under your skin. Because that's what their goal really is to act very arrogant, act very abrasive, act very sarcastic. And then when you get upset, and of course they do this in a really calm tone, as if they're calm and in control of their faculties. And then when you get upset, they then just fixate on you being upset, which is really just an ad hominem attack. Definitely be careful of this guy, Paul. He practices censorship. He blatantly lies. I mean, when I was breaking down the truth about these religions, he comes out saying that he's not religious. And then clearly, look, this was after our conversation. He was saying all this religious stuff, saying that that I was breaking the word of God or trying to violate whatever. He called me a demon. That's I mean, it's hilarious, okay? This guy is a character. I mean, hats off to you, Paul. You do a good job at what you do. Just like Brian does a good job at what he does. I mean, he's good at what he does. I cannot deny that. But anyway, I'll see you all in my next video.